Can Republicans rebound from some stunning losses this year? Hi, I'm Chris Casteel in the Washington Bureau of the Oklahoman, and I'm here with former Oklahoma Congressman J.C. Watts, who served in the House for 8 years and was part of the Republican Revolution that took over the House in 1995 for the first time in 40 years. This year, J.C., the Republicans are having some problems. They lost 3 special House races already in districts that had long been held by Republicans, and that's a lot of people are thinking that's bad news for the fall. What do you think?
Well, it surely doesn't help in the fall, that's for sure, and I think we all we can agree with that. But you know, Chris, there's when you think of yellow arches, what do you think about? You think of McDonald's. Mm-hmm. You see red roofs. You think of Pizza Hut, mm-hmm. and there was a time when you thought of Republicans, you thought of smaller government, accountability. You thought lower taxes, and we've lost that brand, mm-hmm. and those 3 special elections. I think in Louisiana, I understand we had a very poor candidate. Mm-hmm. They had intra-party squabbles there in Louisiana that was going on. I think they had some intra-party squabbles down in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. The one that I was a bit surprised with was the special election for Speaker Hastert's seat. I really thought we would probably win that one. But I think that gives you some kind of indication of the headwind that I think Republicans are fighting. I think John McCain probably gives us our best chance of having some success and having a bright spot in the fall. And many Republicans, as you know, aren't yet excited about him. Probably 15-20% of Republicans out there still are reserved about him. So it's going to be a tough year. It's not impossible to get it turned around, mm-hmm. but Republicans, we do have some brand problems right now.
Now the man who replaced you in Congress in Oklahoma, Tom Cole, Republican from Moore, is the head of the committee up here in Washington that's in charge of getting Republicans elected to Congress, and he's catching a lot of heat for these losses this year. Now, I believe Congressman Cole was an early political mentor of yours and ran one of your early campaigns. Is it Cole's fault or what's going on here?
Well, Chris, I could make a pretty strong argument that knowing Tom's political skills, his political instincts. I don't think Tom, the struggles that we see at the NRCC, the committee that Tom is over, I don't think they're having those difficulties because Tom doesn't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. I think it's more of a brand and being able to recruit the right candidates. And people are saying, hey, we'd rather run our business. We'd rather go to Little League ball games. We don't want to run for Congress. We think Washington's crazy. We think it's out of control. Mm-hmm. Why would I want to give up what I'm doing and go be a part of that? But again, I could make a strong argument that it might have been worse might be worse if Tom wasn't there, knowing his political skills. Now, having said that, I think anybody that sits in that seat, and we're having the type of the year that we're having in special elections that we're going to have in the fall, mm-hmm. they're going to catch some of the heat. They're going to have to be willing to take some of the blame. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when Tom was elected 2, 3, 4 years ago, whenever it was, they were literally pitching him the keys to the Titanic. Chris, everything that's happened over the last 3 or 4 years, I saw it coming, 5 or 6 years ago when I left Congress. I don't think nothing has surprised me as to what has happened. Mm-hmm. When you see a marriage that has failed, it didn't happen overnight. When you see a business that's failed, it didn't happen overnight. When you see a personal life that something's gone awry in that personal life, it didn't just happen overnight. Mm-hmm. What Republicans are dealing with, it didn't just start happening 2 years ago.
Did it start happening because of President Bush, do you think? And how much is he responsible for the image of Republicans right now?
I think in terms of the war, Chris, I really do think history will be kind to the way President Bush has stayed the course in terms of the war. Mm-hmm. I have said before that I think the cause was right. I think the execution was often poor. Mm-hmm. We don't talk a lot about the surge today because the surge is working. Mm-hmm. But John McCain, General Powell, General Shinseki, who was the Army staff, the chief of staff 4 years ago, they all said, we don't have enough boots on the ground. You know, I think Secretary Rumsfeld would have done the nation a lot of good had he taken note of that. I think there was a little bit of Secretary Rumsfeld that he had to be the smartest guy in the room all the time, and I think that hurt our cause. But we are there. I think it's the right mission, and I think the fact that we've had poor execution on several different fronts, I think we're now going in the right direction. But I think it soured the nation in terms of the war. I don't think the American people, however, are opposed to, I don't think their values would say to us, we don't want to defend ourselves. I think their values, their lack of support, and in terms of their support for the war was about execution. I don't think it was about the cause, about the mission. I think it was more about execution. So now that the execution is going better, we're seeing great results there. Press not talking about the war anymore. It's the economy now, but Iraq is not the number one issue anymore. It will be an issue in the fall, but it's not the number one issue right now. The economy takes more precedence than the war does in terms of politics.
Well, were there other things besides the war that you think helped shape the perception of Bush? I mean, say Katrina.
I think Katrina. I think there's a lot of fault. I think there's plenty of fault to go around. I don't put all the fault at President Bush's feet, although I think the administration mishandled Katrina. I think the state didn't do some things right. I think the city, there's enough blame to go around for them. But, you know, Chris, I think the biggest mistake the president made in terms of Katrina, you know, sometimes when your friend Chris Casteel is hurting, sometimes it just takes a call from JC to say, hey, Chris, I can't relate to what you're going through, but I want you to know I'm here to hurt with you. I'm here to cry with you. I think that's what the nation was, or what Katrina, the people that went through that, I think that's what they were wanting from the president at that time, and they seemed to be a little bit removed, a little bit distant from what was actually going on. Now, although there's plenty of room to go around, the federal government, because of politics, President Bush ended up getting the short straw in that deal, and his presidency was impacted tremendously by it.
Let me ask you real quick about the presidential race. I mean, I know that you go back with Senator McCain, and obviously a Republican. I remember you and Senator McCain took a bus trip together. I think was that after the 2000 convention.
That's right. We were going to do that, and he had the bout with cancer. Yeah.
But is there part of you that's pulling for Barack Obama to be the first black president of the United States, or not?
Chris, I think that there's a part of me that anytime I can see an African American doing something positive, that I think it paints a picture of what America can look like. A female, you know, my faith would encourage me to say, if there's someone that's running as a Christian, that, you know, man, I'm pulling for them because they have an opportunity to give a picture of what Christianity is, right, and how compassionate it is, and so forth, and so on. But I'm not one, and of course, being a black Republican, I think it speaks to the fact that I've never been one to go along just to get along. That I feel like I have to think like all Wattses think because I'm a Watts, or all black people because I'm black, all Republicans because I'm Republican. I think in order for there to be real change, there has to be real change. And I've not seen anything in Senator Obama's in his proposals and his policy positions that would encourage me that the change that we're getting is more than political change. You'll have somebody else occupying the seat in the White House. But and I am friends with John McCain. John and I have known each other for some time. We've been on different sides of policy issues, but we've remained friends. And I said back at the outset, I thought John McCain, because of his convictions, right or wrong, gave us the best chance of winning. And it looks like you're going to have inspiration versus conviction in the general election, which is going to make for a very interesting election. Real quick, I know you're busy with a lot of your business pursuits up here, but do you plan to campaign for him at all? Do anything for Senator McCain this fall? You know, Chris, I've got Black Television News Channel. I've got interest in a project management construction company there in Oklahoma. And I've also got a consulting firm that we represent, 30 or so clients, including several from the state of Oklahoma, from HBCUs to energy interests. And so I've got more than I can say grace over. I've not talked to the McCain folks. I suspect, they've got my number. Some point in time, if they think I can add value. They'll call. I'll say, let's meet. I'll tell them, what I think and how I think they ought to be doing things. And if they feel like I can contribute, I'll consider it at that time.
All right. Thanks so much for coming in, JC.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me on. My pleasure.
Look for more on this story and others in the Oklahoman.